Ladies and gentlemen, we go on to our next segment for this afternoon. The next segment isn't a fireside chat. It isn't a panel discussion, but rather an intriguing trilogue. This session focuses on AI's ROI, a VC, an adopter, and an innovator on building real world value. Let's welcome for this our eminent speakers. We have Mr. Sarvanan Nattanmai, partner, Premji Invest. Please put your hands together and join me in welcoming Mr. Sarvanan on stage. Thank you, sir, for being a part of this trilogue. Welcoming on stage Mr. Debabrata Basak, co-founder and COO GreyLabs AI. A round of applause, everyone. Please put your hands together as we welcome on stage Mr. Basak. Thank you for being a part of this trilogue. And finally, welcoming on stage Mr. Karthikeyan K, co-founder and CTO Kreditbee. A round of applause for Mr. Karthikeyan. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time and the opportunity to join us out here at India Digital Summit 2026 and sharing with us your thoughts. I'm looking forward to this particular conversation. I'm going to leave the floor to you, Mr. Sarvanan. Please lead the way.
Hi all, thanks everyone. First of all, KK is a familiar face for me. He's our portfolio company as well, and of course Deb is also very familiar face in the AI world, working closely with Kreditbee in many areas, and we have also been in touch in exploring and understanding new emerging trends in the AI space. Just to kind of give a little bit of a context, right? We wanted to keep it a little more, freewheeling, neither, a moderated session or a sort of fireside chat as mentioned earlier. I represent a investment world. We manage large domestic capital investing across technology-centric themes in financial services, consumer, and other areas. And Kreditbee is the leading digital lender in the country today, and of course, GreyLabs is a fast-growing AI company, right? As a investor and as a pioneering adapter of AI, and also someone who is building interesting products, in the AI space. The idea is to see how we see, the opportunities that lies ahead in front of us in terms of use of AI and the benefit to the larger real world use cases, right? So that is a broader theme, right? Of course, I'll kind of like come with a lot of investors kind of insight, but I want to understand, and that too with a very specific use case to start with, right? Because AI used to be one layer on top of existing systems, but now it has become deeply embedded into the operating framework and the core systems of many of the companies, right? In that context, specifically, this question is aimed at you, Deb. How do you see the compliance and an auditability kind of like goes hand in hand when you are working with your peers, particularly in the regulated system like financial services, right? And in addition to that, particularly companies like Kreditbee generate millions and millions of data, whether it is customers or their repayment record or their own credit history. How do you handle a robust system, or how do you build a robust system that kind of handles both structured and unstructured data when you are kind of like building tailored solutions, right? And that kind of like translates into better economic value for your customers. Maybe if you can start with that, I will kind of like add more to some layers that from my perspective.
Sure, I think that's an excellent topic to start with, because whenever we are talking to any CXOs in BFSI, and being from a company which only focuses on BFSI, the first question is, how do I know when my customers are talking to your voice AI or your AI system, it don't hallucinate and it don't suddenly say, let's say, some competitor is better than me, right? So of course that confusion or that kind of fear around AI guardrails is always there, right? And that's where there's a slight difference between how AI works in the enterprise framework, right? It can't be a black box, right? It can't be like, you can't really report to auditors what happened You have to report to them why it happened, right? So it has to have auditability as the center of the architecture, correct? So whenever the AI makes a decision, it can be traced back to what the input was, what the model logic was, and what the output actionability was, right? So of course, you guys are, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the explainable AI concept, right? So you have to go one step beyond that, right? The explainability has to be at a decision level. I'll give an example. Imagine you are using AI to take a strategic decision on one customer on what collection strategy you want to follow, right? Now you took a decision that, let's say I want to send someone on field, or I want to do a calling to the customer to recover an amount, right? That has to be traced back on what conversation queues were accommodated for that, what intent shifts were accommodated for that. All of that has to be traceable, right? And you have to pinpoint that, yeah, this is how the decision was made. Not just this is the decision, this is the final outcome, but exactly how the decision was achieved, you have to kind of explain that, right? And that's what currently all the companies are focusing on, especially the companies which are focused on building something for enterprise. Because the moment you make it more explainable, it stops being an AI outcome or AI output. It becomes a data-driven decision which can actually be part of a workflow for the company.
And how the models have evolved to handle unstructured data, right? I'll kind of like come to KK also on this topic, but as someone who's building the solution, do you think it has kind of like evolved reasonably to make intelligent decision making or enable intelligent decision making using unstructured and structured in a combined way?
Definitely would love to understand KK sir's thought on that, right? For me, I think the models would keep evolving, right? But the guardrails, the evals, definitely has to be kind of created, and that has to be domain specific, right? If you are working with a bank, if you are working with an NBFC, you have to know what kind of guardrails or evals you have to implement for that bank, right? So generic LLMs cannot really handle, I don't think we have reached that stage yet where generic LLMs can handle that. They can be jailbroken, so you have to have that guardrail, that evals system in place.
Understood. I will frame a little broader question. I won't leave you with the easy question, right? See, you are one of the pioneers in terms of using AI heavily for various aspects of the lending life cycle, right? What has firstly triggered that thought in terms of a specific use case? Maybe if you could kind of like explain, in the lending life cycle, which one particular project or one particular aspect has really helped in eliminating or simplifying a layer substantially, and what that resulted in superior outcome, whether it is on the underwriting or whether it is on collection or whether it is on better prospecting. And layered on top of it, if you could touch upon how the models have really helped you in making the decision, whether it is using structured or unstructured data, and what sort of inferencing or training that you had to kind of like do in achieving those outcomes, that will be helpful.
Yeah. So see, this is something as in we launched Kreditbee 10 years back, right? And the platform has been continuously evolving throughout almost this decade of what we have been doing digitally. So if you look at it, we were the first guys who did a digital end-to-end platform for basically customers to basically come and avail the services whatever we are doing, right? And when we launched itself, we had a very strong intention that we need to automate quite a bit of things, right? So at that time when we launched, we were in the pre-ChatGPT era, right? I would say that is the, what do you say, a demarker between where AI became pervasive in the industry and where AI was more of a basically a technology which was used more by the digitally savvy companies, right? So if you ask that, as in we were using AI and AI-based technologies from the beginning, get set, right? So that is where a lot of things got automated, as in the system entirely was automated in terms of basically customer onboarding and detecting fraud and all those things, right? So a good example at that point is basically face identification and face recognition, right? and face matching. So we used to generally match the faces between all the identity cards and then the basically the residency ID cards and etc. and the selfies and liveness photos etc. and all those things. We have had a plethora of cases, right? As in we have had husbands putting wife's KYC and the husband himself putting the disguising himself like a wife and then trying to apply the loan in the liveness scenarios and etc. Right? So these were scenarios which were the pre GPT era where we had trained models which we were using and continuing, right? But as Sarvanan said, the actual kicker, so that did around 60 to 70% of it, right? But the actual kicker came post the GPT era where the actual fact of inferencing, as in that's what they call basically understanding, right? Or interpreting, how we say in human language, right? As in we look at a photo, the human brain immediately can identify that these two are not the same photos. But we used trained models before, but then the newer models have helped us in basically not needing the absolute amount of training that we had to do earlier, right? So data collection, etc., what we used to do, sorting, cleaning, all those things, the models have already done it. So we were able to speed up a lot of things, right? And the boundary of basically capturing it, the scenarios expanded, right? And we were able to do better fraud detection. We were able to do basically, so when you detect fraud, generally, the NPAs basically come down automatically. Right? Being a fintech company, for me, that's a bottom line which cannot be, which has to be managed extremely well, right? And speed to the speed at which we could service the customers. Earlier, let's say if I was doing 60 per customers per 100, now I could do 70 or 80, right? And operational efficiency increases, the speed to market, life cycle, the entire life cycle value of the customer increases, etc. Right? So it's a win-win situation for both of us. I can service more customers with more conviction that they are proper customers, right? And on the other hand, the customers themselves are more happy because I am servicing more customers, right? So that way, the ChatGPT and this thing. So mainly with respect to how we infer and the amount of training that we have to do to get the models has basically improved. And we also have a lot of competition, and competition always helps the customer a lot. So we have every 6 months or every 4 months a new model coming, and the service is getting better and better at these things. So I think the customer is basically winning in all ways here.
Thanks. Every time I talk, I learn something new. Thanks. This is very helpful.
So I think very interesting, and I was just going through your portfolio as well, and most of the companies like being Kreditbee, Deserve, Lenskart, all of them have been, even though from different industries, they have done something phenomenal in terms of AI innovation, right? I'm sure you would be actively encouraging your portfolio companies to innovate, right? So how do you actually differentiate whether a technology, whether an AI model should be embedded deeply into the workflow of your portfolio companies, or should it just be surface level technology, right? How do you normally assess that, how much depth the infra has for your portfolio company?
I think it's a very pertinent question. I think every company can aspire to become AI first, but for that, foundation has to be really strong. The foundation would include the quality of data and the data infrastructure that they have invested in to harvest and train the models to get a better outcome. Right? Some sectors are inherently challenged, and because of traditional way of operating, right? They will kind of like struggle to even put together a data and systems in a particular way that AI can be more effective. There, the adoption has to be kind of like timed, right? Otherwise, it'll kind of like the models will hallucinate and the quality of output will kind of like go for a toss, and it can have various ramification on the business, the core business itself. So, right there, we have to plan it better. Right? Some segments are inherently data rich, right? Fintechs have the advantage of playing with data from day one, like whether it is Kreditbee or whether it is Deserve, right? So they have always had this access of high quality data from the day one, and they have invested in that infrastructure there. The adoption and the drive can be much faster. But whereas some of the traditional companies first will have to prep themselves for a year in terms of migrating all the historical information in a format that can be consumed better for making quality decision. Right? That is how we fine tune our engagement with my portfolio companies, right? Wherein some will be path breakers and there'll be kind of like leaders, some will be followers, but eventually my sense is that everyone will reach there in 3-5 years or so, and that will have a very different style of working going forward.
Fair, fair. I think.
I mean, I have a very curious question, right? Because you have invested in technology and the playbook way ahead of even ChatGPT and others kind of like came in, right? And you kind of like started very recently and adapted it amazingly, and GreyLabs have become a very prominent name in financial services as well as in other sectors, right? What ran in your mind when it kind of like came to a decision on should I build in-house or should I partner, right? And how it has kind of like played out, eventually, and what sort of specific aspects that you looked at, in making those decisions, right? Because that is something which I also, think through for my other portfolio companies and some of the interesting companies that I meet also. That everyone try to do everything in-house or everything kind of like outsourced. It just kind of like gets into, some long debate with less conclusions. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, this is a very interesting question because the same question Sarvanan asked us when he was investing in us many years back, right? But the things have changed from then, right? The idea is that as in we are a digital first company, right? So what happens is that since most of the data is flowing through us digitally, that already is basically a leg up on tops of traditional companies where some of them are physically happening, etc. Right? So we always had a strategy, as in all founders, basically Madhu, Vivek, and myself, and all of us basically had always this thought in mind that we should always experiment a lot of things, right? As in with experimentation, you would get some things which is always definitely a gold mine which might just strike when you don't basically you're not expecting, right? So with respect to that, a lot of experiments have turned out very well, and a lot of experiments have turned out so-so, and some of them have not been so great, right? But idea is that continuous experimentation is something that we do, and for experimentation, it's always we talk with GreyLabs kind of partners, and partners who are also aligned with the same thought process, saying that if an outcome is reached, definitely a values proposition is reached, then both the companies benefit, right? We as a digital service provider, we can drive volumes to the customer who is providing us services, etc. Right? So that is one mindset that you need to always have, experiment and this thing. So this also brings in the basically talent which you don't have because they are a full shop AI based, voice based company, whereas I am a core customer focused digital services company, right? So the talent can definitely be tapped at whatever time that is needed. And we can also build the talent in-house at a later point in time as we see the technology and the solution grow, right? That is one of the main things, right? As in speed to market. If it clicks, you just turn the tap on, right? And you don't need to do all the plumbing work, right? As in generally speaking, your structure of the house is built very fast, but then your interiors and plumbing take the most time, right? And most of the times it doesn't work also. As in whenever you go into a new house, you have issues with water supply and electricity supply, etc. Right? So that plumbing work is already done. So then I can just turn the tap on and I can just start using the services. That's how we look at it, right? And once it's reached a certain maturity, we see how we can bring this in-house and then how we can compete with our vendors and other vendors and keep the solution moving forward in a way that the customers benefit, right? That's finally the whole motto. The customer benefit comes in through the services that we do through partners and solutions which we build in-house at a later point in time, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's how we look at it. Yeah.
Interesting. Internal and external competition you will kind of like create. Right? So enterprise clients are very difficult to satisfy. At least in India, the animal is like very, very kind of like wild. Right? I'm sure Kreditbee is not any different. Right? So how do you plan your strategy, keeping in pace with the evolving models, so that your quality of outcome is to the best of expectations from your enterprise clients? And enterprise clients also evolve with their kind of products, strategy, and of course, Kreditbee is getting into MSME and secured loans and a whole bunch of other products, right? How do you keep up pace with the product roadmap of, technology roadmap of yours vis-a-vis the product roadmap for your customers, right? Maybe if you could just throw some clients so that the partnership continues to grow.
So, I think when you're dealing with enterprises, let's say AI model accuracy, all of that are bare minimum, right? You actually need to deal with things like reliability, predictability, scale. Kreditbee would ask me on day one, can your system run 24/7, handle millions of interaction, and be an integral part of my workflow without any downtime? That would be the expectation, right? More than model accuracy, of course, those would definitely be non-negotiables, but more than that, I think the reliability, the predictability is something a customer like Kreditbee would definitely ask us for, right? And that has always kind of been the core focus for us, right, as we evolve. And one interesting thing that I have observed that enterprise or big customers, contrary to current beliefs, they are often the first movers. They are often the early adapters, right? They often have more, you know, uh, tolerance for failure. They would tell you, ki, okay, you want to do an experimentation, we are okay to co-create something, right? And that's how we also plan our roadmap, right? The roadmap should not be a pure technical or pure product roadmap, which I am building or my tech team is building sitting in a closed room. It has to be built alongside the customer, and it has to be built keeping the business KPIs in mind, right? I have to keep in mind that, yeah, my tech in the end of the day has to earn my customers money. It has to deliver 10x, 15x, 20x, 100x ROI for the customer. So every feature I ship or every model I deploy or release, I have to consult my customer, understand how that ties up to their business KPIs. And once we did that, we actually became the co-owner of the features, co-owner of the product, instead of just a vendor and customer. Right? I think that has been the way to deal with.
Co-creation is the way that will kind of like build the relationship.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, and especially with partners like KK sir and Kreditbee, the entire Kreditbee team, right? They are so tech savvy that we learn a lot. We can help them a lot, and they can help us build our product roadmap. So it's always a joint venture instead of us building something and going to our customers saying that is it any value for you, right?
So given that this is a unique position that I'm in, generally I'm at the receiving end of the questions. So now let me just ask Sarvanan this one. So when you see a portfolio company like Kreditbee and possibly GreyLabs in the future, etc., right? So when Kreditbee is strategically partnering with GreyLabs, etc., how does that validate the strategy, right? And value of both the companies in your eyes, right? And how do you look at it in your perspective? Yeah.
The investors are unique animal, right? And they have an advantage of seeing smart opportunities or smart founders standing at a good vantage point, right? When we saw Kreditbee, we were already in lot many traditional companies, and Kreditbee clearly stood out in terms of using technology first and a digital first approach, right? And coincidentally, I don't know, if you are aware, right? Many of the folks with whom you were doing co-lending are the ones who are the biggest reference points for Kreditbee at that point of time for me, like AU Finance and many folks who were the co-lending partners. They vouched for you, and that became a biggest, validation for us because we were in traditional lending. We were largely backing traditional lenders at that point of time. In 2016, 17, no one even thought about digital lending and technology first lending and app-based lending and stuff, right? So that reference point acted very, very, strongly for us, and it gave us a vantage point to see you earlier than probably others, right? And cut to today, it's very similar, right? You are working with very interesting partners, and GreyLabs being one of them. It gives us a interesting access on what AI can actually do, right? As a fund, we are having so many internal AI projects that are running to help us in terms of becoming smart in our investment decision making. Like 30-40% of my investment memo actually gets generated with the deep integration that we have done across different models and different data sources, right? So we see the power of AI and what it can do, and when it see through your experience and lens, someone like GreyLabs stand out, right? And that also gives us an interesting opportunity to partner, in that sense. So yeah, I mean, as I said, it gives us a bit of a vantage point and we fully exploit it shamelessly.
Great. I think that definitely gives a lot to think.
So, I have, on this particular topic only, right? I was just kind of like curious to understand, right? Given, everyone is kind of like talking about generating mode, right? Using AI, but like what technology used to be in the past, the digital used to be in the past, at some point of time, it becomes a little bit of a table stakes, right? How do you see, right? This question is largely to, Dave. How do you see, companies truly build a defensibility, using, an AI first approach? And, again, going back to my questions around, using, a different sort of models, whether it is close-ended or an open source model, what sort of, defensibility can be created in this space before, everyone adapts and it becomes a, bit of a table stake? You have to keep on innovating to
Correct.
stand out, right? So would love to hear your thoughts.
No, this is quite obvious that models are going to be commoditized, right? Eventually, like it's already are. They already are, right? Models are quite commoditized. Uh, Today, if let's say ChatGPT, OpenAI launches a model tomorrow, Gemini would launch a better model, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, where the moat or where the defensibility comes in is application specific training of those models, right? Imagine if a vertical startup like us who are very focused in building AI for BFSI, right? We would definitely utilize very custom data set, custom training set to further enhance the accuracy for specific use cases, right? Imagine if I'm only dealing with sales service collection for BFSI, right? My model would always have a specific training done on BFSI dataset, which would not be publicly accessible, right? I think that's first. And second, it's the inference economy, right? In the end of the day, cost per decision matters a lot. When it comes to cost per decision, we have seen lightweight models work much better, much more accurate, and much more cost efficient, right? Today, I can definitely deploy a huge thinking model, and it would get the job done. But I'm sure KK sir would not pay me for that, right? Uh, that's where these lightweight models come in handy, right? You have to develop and train those lightweight models, and those would be cost efficient, those would be faster. And last point, I think compliance would be a moat, right? Because when you're dealing in an industry which is so regulation heavy, suddenly that regulation, instead of becoming a constraint, that becomes a competitive advantage for us, right? So in an industry like lending, data localization, right? Audit logs, encryption for data in motion, data in rest, those stop becoming add-ons. Those become non-negotiable. And if you can kind of present that as a moat, you can present that as a repeatable application, right? It easily makes your product viable and a long-term product for companies like Kreditbee.
So that's very helpful, right? If I were to tweak the similar question to you, KK, right? In the past, right, many banks resisted even laptops, first desktops and then laptops, and people said like, "What is this ATM? ATM should not be there. People will lose job." Right? But slowly and steadily, everyone kind of like adapted, and now, whether it is an online account or whether it is a digital kind of a wallet, everything has become a norm, right? Do you see, as a first adapter of AI, investing heavily in that and reaping benefit out of it? At some point of time, the incumbents, right, whether it is a traditional lenders or banks, will kind of like catch up to this AI wave. And again, my earlier point, it will become a table stake for any player in this industry. And also, you are investing today with where the implementation cost is high, right? 2 years, 3 years later, when the cost of computing and multiple things kind of like crashes down, right? A new person might be in a position to adapt it better at a lower cost. Do you see both of them kind of like becoming a competition at some point of time? And is there a cost to being a pioneer in kind of like doing AI? And how do you see that, competition playing out?
Okay. So this is, as in this is a future which will play out in different ways, right? But personally, I feel that um, we need to invest in the present because that is what we are in, right? As in that is how the things are going on. So with respect to the current scenario, the idea is that basically we are investing in a way that basically we can service our customer better, right? So what that is going to result in is that the customer base sticks with us, right? So, and if you look at the customers who are coming to us, they are more digitally savvy customers, right? And they are more used to, using an app-based interface kind of things for availing services, financial services, which traditionally had to be done at a bank office, etc. kind of things, fill out huge forms, sign multiple documents, etc. kind of things, and do that, right? So already to a good extent, they are digitally savvy. And with respect to all of this investment, what is happening is that we are continuously fine-tuning and improving our models, etc. Right? So what this is resulting in is that earlier it used to be a defensive posture where you would have to do a lot of things like is this correct, is am I doing it right, etc. kind of things. But with some of these things, your posture changes, right? As in from a very defensive aspect to a more active and a greedy aspect, right? As in it's like how many customers can I service, right? As in so when that happens, and the data starts flowing, right? Once you hit a critical mass, it is all statistical things, right? As in the behavior patterns are can be done statistically and all those things. That's why the economists are generally predict a lot of things way ahead of things because they are statistically looking at how the things are happening and stuff like that. Obviously, this is an oversimplification of what really happens, but the idea is that general trends start emerging once the data starts getting to a critical mass. So, what I would say is that investing now is paramount because you get the customers, and once your experience is better, the customer is happy with you. Generally, a happy customer never leaves you, right? And you keep on continuously basically provide him services, and you understand with these AI technologies, we can understand what he wants, right? So, for example, a customer needs a personal loan. The next he might be looking at a two-wheeler loan, or you might be looking at a consumer durable loan, or something to increase his lifestyle, maybe stuff like that, right? So once we are able to detect that, we can tailor these things to basically provide that. So some personalization, which you already do for a good extent, which we can start pushing to the more of the customers, right? So definitely you need to catch the customers earlier and make them happy so that they retain on your platform and go ahead, right? As in that ways, I would say basically like the customer our prediction models and the way we are able to give them personalized services, that is what will help us in the longer term.
So clearly, the first mover, whether it is because of customers' mind space and the model's continuous evolution, we will have a significant upper hand by getting in early and being, pioneer and kind of evolving that over a period of time.
Yeah. So, and when the cost reduces, definitely it's not univocal to only one fellow. It's a universal cost reduction for everybody. So when you are already at an advantageous position, you can further leverage on the cost reduction to 1x or 2x what was already happening. Yeah, that's how I see.
Got it. That's very helpful.
So interesting. And on what you were asking, like how we build defensibility, like I'm curious how it looks like. Let me flip the axis, right? How do you, as an investor, identify startups who actually have a moat, who actually have a defensibility in the crowd of AI, right? Today, I can see hundreds of companies building some or other AI technology, right? How do you differentiate those who can actually last, who can actually build a long-term business versus those who are maybe just using it as a fundraising technique, probably, right?
I think as the saying goes, right? Every 10 year there will be a new wave that will come in, right? .com, blockchain, now AI, right? So I think naturally, a lot of companies will come, will kind of like try to experiment this. Lot many with a good intent, and some, as you rightly pointed out, could be a fad, right? what is important is to understand, right, what use of particular technology translates into economic value, right? Being an investor, it just makes it a lot more intuitive for me to kind of like see, like, great investments, fantastic, we should do it, but adaptability of Gen AI is not a metric, right? How it translates into superior operating metric, right? Is my sales guy selling, something on ground? His productivity is becoming 2x because of deployment of, an intuitive models to cross sell, right? That is, easier way of looking at, the first level, right? At the second and third level, you can always go into detailing and see what adaptation of AI or a particular kind of company's products have translated into meaningful outcome, right? Again, the theme of today, how the ROI pans out is something which you can eminently measure, whether it is through operating metric or whether it is through, financial metric with a, attribution of lifetime value for all the savings that you are doing. Once it adds up, then, the job of investors is easy, right? You can kind of like figure out and, attribute value, long-term value for the company, and, take a meaningful position in some of these opportunities.
Has that changed in the last couple of years? Like, if you see the initial interviews of Sam Altman, he was like, I don't know what the use cases will be. I don't know what the outcome would be, right? Let's be delusional and let's see. I'll ask the AI to figure out how to utilize that. So compared to the initial stage, right, where the AI startups were just brainstorming, were coming up with ideas, to today, where there are some startups who have proven the ROI in enterprise setups. Like, has it changed? Has the approach to invest changed throughout these years?
Definitely, yes. As with any kind of like a new area, there will be a lot of, for lack of better word, a buzz in the initial period, right? And then the buzz will translate into meaningful outcome. Then the investor interest will kind of dramatically change, and the lens and metrics also will dramatically change. We are very heavy in our investments in AI in the US. Right? We are investors in Hippocratic, we are investors in EvenUp and, Hugging Face, and a whole bunch of companies we have invested. And the trajectory of revenue as well as growth happening in the US with adoption of AI is substantially higher. India will catch up, I'm sure, and people like you are kind of like creating some path-breaking entry in terms of creating, models around this. I think it's just a matter of time, when kind of like India also catches up there. But to your question, yes, definitely the lens will keep evolving with year when more and more proven use case kind of like comes up. Yeah.
So, Sarvanan, looking beyond this current hype cycle, right? What is your firm's long-term thesis for value creation in AFI's companies, right? And how must your own investment strategy adapt to AI as AI continues to evolve regulations, markets, and customer expectations, basically?
I think, as I mentioned, India is still slowly adapting AI as a differentiator in the, whether it is in the financial services company or any other, sectors, right? We would probably not strictly use that as a, metric to decide how we should value the company. But when we see some companies smartly adapting, right, whether, whether it is Kreditbee or whether it is some other portfolio company of ours in the consumer space or, in the financial services space, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? Naturally, that will start showing up much faster, whether it is in the cost to income ratio or whether it is in, number of customers, number of products per customer metric. It will show up first there, and then within a period of time before anyone anticipates, it will show up in the financial metric, which is far, far superior than traditional models. People should be able to bake in valuation or potential value creation in kind of like while entering today, right? That's what we are getting paid for. So hopefully we do that job, better. In that context, I have a question, right? Well, we are also running short of time. If you were to look at next 5 years, right? Both of you guys are heavy on tech and, read the product roadmap and the technology evolution much better than I do, right? Would love to hear from you, KK and Deb. What do you think one or two big areas that is going to emerge in the next 3 to 5 years in AI specific areas in your domain or any other domain that you kind of like see AI has a big role to play?
Okay, so I think if you look at the last few years, the evolution has been very fast, right? As in we had basically a text-based LLM where you had a text interface. Then multimodal systems came in, right? Where you could feed in images or text or audio, video, etc. kind of things. Multimodal systems, right? Then agentic systems, right? As in, for example, you would have to do multiple interactions, but then now you can say that book a cab or book a flight ticket, right? And like how it says what dates, what time you want to depart, etc. Questions, and you can plan with the system, right? With an agentic system. And then now post that there is memory banks, right? As in terms of it remembers what the last context was and touches all these memory banks and asks this, right? So these are all evolving at a very rapid pace, as in it's for all matter of aspect, it's evolving at a much faster pace than anybody anticipated, right? So definitely, I think in the future, 5 years is a long time, right? I think we might just be obsolete by then, as in you would have a AI avatar sitting here with a 3D projector, which could be doing the chat while we are sitting at home, the convenience of home, and doing the same chat, right? As in it could be that, right? It could be basically agents which are basically very much trained, personalized for basically each and every individual, right? As in, so you have already there is research happening in terms of how to mimic voices with, let's say, 10 seconds or 30 seconds of audio data kind of thing. So then if I have so many agents, I could use their own this thing to offload some of the activities of what the agents are doing, right? So that they are more efficient. So efficiencies definitely can improve, and the way in which we interact will totally change, right? As in that's how we see it. So that's both a positive aspect, mainly a largely positive aspect, but maybe a slightly, socially, people who are withdrawn can also start getting interacting more, and then getting more self-assured and more socially approached to basically help themselves approach more socially to other people, etc. So a lot of things can happen which we just cannot envision, is what I would say.
But quick 1 minute from you in terms of what you think will be a big one.
I think I'll give an example. Have you heard of Claude Bot, the recent hype in Twitter? I think that would be the direction to go, right? Right now, even though there are agentic AIs, they only accomplish tasks. They don't accomplish a goal, right? If I today tell someone that you need to hire one person in your company, or maybe you need to draft a collection strategy and recover this much amount, you can have a human in the loop who drive those actions through AI. I feel in the next few years, that's going to change. It's not going to be human in the loop. It would be policy in the loop. We would define the policies, and the AI would execute that end to end. Instead of being human driven, human decision driven, AI can actually take the decisions and complete the goals end to end, right? So I think that would be a fundamental shift, and definitely that would impact how today fintech scale, how the cost structure is, operationalized, and definitely how the risk part is structured today.
But this is very helpful. Hopefully, as long as it doesn't replace me in the core investment job, I'll be kind of like, okay, I think we kind of like used up the entire time, but if there are some questions from the audience, happy to answer as well.
Please do put your hands together and let's give it up for our eminent speakers joining us on stage this afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time off and sharing with us your thoughts and inputs. If I could request the three of you to kindly step to the forefront of the stage for a quick photo opportunity. It's been brilliant hearing what you have to share with us about AI's ROI today, this afternoon on our stage, and a privilege having you be a part of India Digital Summit 2026. Thank you so much once again, dignitaries, for joining us.